Mark. Thank you. I'm looking for our gray-haired fellow there. Tell us. Everything's connected. So good morning and Happy New Year, everybody. Back to work. 2017. Back to work. The Redevelopment Agency meeting. Happy New Year to the right. And the Lone Rangers to the left. Anyway, the Redevelopment Agency meeting of January 4th, 2017 is called to order. The meeting has been properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. These proceedings are being video recorded as well as presented live on KCLV Cable Channel 2 and are closed captioned for hearing impaired viewers. Please note, customers of CenturyLink, you may view this program in high definition on Channel 1002. Good morning, Jace. The Redevelopment Agency meeting, as well as all other KCLV programming, may be viewed on the internet at www.kclv.tv/live/. The proceedings will be rebroadcast on KCLV Channel 2 and the web Wednesday, the meeting at 8 p.m. Also on Friday at 4 a.m., Saturday at 7 p.m., Sunday at 7 a.m., and the following Monday at 5 p.m. This building is protected by a state-of-the-art fire detection and suppression sprinkler system. If alarms should activate during today's meeting, please evacuate using the exits at the back of the chambers out to the mezzanine. Proceed out the double doors to the terrace and down the back staircase. For anyone who has difficulty with stairs, please check with a marshal or fire official for assistance. Once outside, please assemble on the northeast corner across the street from City Hall at Lewis and First Street. Employees wearing safety vests or our city marshals will inform you when it's safe to re-enter the building. For public comment related to items on the agenda, citizen participation, and public hearing items, we have available a speaker card which you may complete and submit to the city clerk. Cards are available online. The clerk's office at the rear of these chambers. If you do not submit a card, it does not prevent you from speaking under public comment, citizen participation, or specified public hearing items. If anyone's present today who has need for hearing impaired equipment, please see our city clerk staff up front. If you parked in the parking garage across the street, be sure to have your ticket validated by security officers when exiting. We'll move on to agenda item 3. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. The amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. All comments made will be cross-referenced to those specific items. If anyone submitted a card or who wishes to speak under this portion of the agenda, please come to the podium and state your name for the record. This is your opportunity to address the agency, but the agency members are not able to respond or address dialogue. We will set the time at 1 minute. The massive crowd has come forward. We will now move on. Good morning. Happy New Year, Mr. Redevelopment. Agenda item 4. RA 11-2016, advance item discussion for possible action regarding a resolution setting forth the policy of the Redevelopment Agency to authorize the executive director of the agency to have the administrative authority to make minor changes to the redevelopment plan for redevelopment areas 1 and 2. That includes areas 1, 3, and 5, which are council persons Tarkanian, Coffin, and Barlow. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council, and Redevelopment Agency Board of Directors. For the record, Bill Arndt, Director, Economic and Urban Development. This item before you is to accommodate some smaller projects which are trying to move forward with development in our redevelopment area that are right on the border or boundary of our redevelopment plan. What is happening is each of these projects that's coming in has some of their property that is located inside the redevelopment plan boundaries and some of the property that is outside the redevelopment plan boundaries. What we're seeing is some of these projects have a sliver parcel or remnant parcel that is very small in size, and it's creating an issue with the city's planning process because there are different land uses in redevelopment and within the city of Las Vegas's planning code, and that's creating a situation where it either has to all be inside the redevelopment plan boundary or all outside the redevelopment plan boundary. There are 2 specific projects that we're looking at in Ward 1, and I understand from city planning there's a new one that I don't have the parcels for yet in Ward 5, but also in Ward 5. But the two that are in Ward 1 are very small parcels that are outside the redevelopment plan boundaries. The first one, parcel number 139-231-210-001, is .08 acres and has showing an assessed value on the tax rolls of 0. The second one, 163-01-102-037, is showing a total acreage of 0.13 acres and also an assessed value of 0 on the tax roll. And what this resolution would do is it would allow the agency's executive director, our city manager, Betsy Fretwell, to move forward and approve administratively an inclusion of this parcel into the redevelopment plan boundary if certain conditions are met. Those conditions are outlined in your backup and include that there's not a significant value to the property. And so what we're trying to do is trying to allow an administrative remedy for these smaller projects moving through our planning process and not hold them up with development. The only alternative to this is to actually amend our formal redevelopment plan each time and add these parcels to the redevelopment plan. And that process, because we have to do 2 public hearings, is a 3 to 4 month process and costs the city's redevelopment agency approximately $17,000 each time due to public posting requirements. Staff recommends approval. And I'm sorry, Betsy?
I just wanted to mention that Councilwoman's on her way up, and she was one who requested the item to be obeyed for 2 weeks, and so I was just hoping that we might be able to give ourselves a little bit of time here for her to join the conversation.
Absolutely, and I have a question as we're doing it. She is on her way, great. If there's an objection, if the parcels are not owned by the same individual, and there's an objection by the owner outside the redevelopment area, what happens in light of that? Because I remember we had a parcel in Ward 1, I think it was on Sahara or Charleston on the north side, that you had the piece that was in the redevelopment area and then the small piece adjacent, which I think was the same ownership, but in the event that there would be a different ownership to the back piece, what's the process? Are you able to overrule that?
Mayor, if I could address that. The criteria that we listed, and I didn't outline these, but I think it's a good place to jump off and acknowledge Councilwoman Tarkanian joining us for the item. There are 4 criteria we outlined that have to be met for us to even consider going down this road and doing it administratively. The first is the property must be owned by the property owner, a single property owner, or is being acquired where the development project is being considered. So we would only consider parcels where they're under common ownership. We wouldn't consider parcels where one person owns one parcel and a different person or a different owner owns another parcel. It would have to be common ownership. It must be a parcel that is too small to establish an economically viable use, and that's why we listed those specific examples. The parcel does not contribute significantly to an increase in the size of the parcel to which it's being consolidated, as determined by agency staff, and lastly, has an insignificant impact on the potential increase or decrease in assessed value for the parcel it is being consolidated into or removed from, as determined by agency staff. So we're really talking about isolated cases where it's a parcel of insignificant value, very small parcel, and it's really meant to try to accommodate the development process and be pro-development for the property owners moving forward through the city's planning process. If there was ever a doubt in staff's mind of whether it was significant, we would certainly take it for a formal amendment if needed. And we've also set a size limitation that it cannot be greater than 1 acre in size.
And I would imagine too that there would be, it would be landlocked with no access to it without the piece that's within the development, the redevelopment area. At least the pieces that are under consideration in Ward 1. I don't think you can access those pieces that are outside the redevelopment except through the piece that's in the redevelopment.
Correct. And Mayor, if you'd like, I have, if I could use the overhead, I do have the 2 specific examples I cited, and you can kind of see with the map, these are really blown up, so the parcel may look bigger than it actually is, but you can see how they're really remnant parcels where it was likely formerly an alley or formerly right-of-way, and it just happens to be kind of hanging out there as its own parcel.
Great, please. Can we make them, there we go. Are those south-north, the way they're put down?
They're both south-north. So the first one, you can see this one, this piece, and then the second one is this sliver piece.
Oh, my gosh.
So they're really remnant parcels. We're not talking about
Wow.
big chunks of land with development potential. It's really just ancillary to the adjacent parcels.
Thank you. Any comments, questions before I turn this over to Councilwoman?
Yes, Mayor.
Please.
Mr. Arndt, you had mentioned, well, in our previous conversations with management, my concern was having the ability to do this administratively, because the concern for a few of us here are the input from the public. So can you speak to how, in fact, or reiterate how, in fact, the public will have, and the ownership will have an opportunity to engage in conversations as it relates to these particular parcels coming into the redevelopment agency?
Thank you, Councilman. I think we can handle that a couple ways. One is there actually is a requirement. I'm going to defer to our city attorney's office on this, but for any development transaction, there's actually a requirement that the redevelopment agency notify the public in advance of the item 14 days in advance, 14 calendar days. We handle that now through our redevelopment agency website, and we certainly could use that practice for these items to let the public know that we're adding a parcel. So the public would have notice. It's not a long, drawn-out process, but it would give the public 14 days notice. And again, if there's ever a doubt in staff's mind that there's a parcel addition that might be controversial because of the location, because of the value, because of the size, if it didn't clearly meet all four of these conditions, we would not seek to do it administratively. We would seek input from the redevelopment agency board going through the formal plan amendment. We also can update you and the rest of the board in briefings as we encounter these items, so that if we encounter a lot of them and we're starting to see maybe some creep where the parcels are getting bigger or more valuable, we could bring back this resolution and seek to amend it or eliminate it if it were no longer appropriate.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Councilman Coffin, I see your light's on.
Thank you. Unless Councilwoman needs to speak first, I just wanted
Well, I just wanted to add to what Ricky said, that I don't like the fact that there's really no sure way the public is involved. We can say we can do this, RDA can do that, and so forth and so on, but it happens that in the past many times when we were told that could happen, it didn't happen. I have an area near Essex Park in Ward 1 that we wanted into the RDA. It wasn't a remnant piece, but it was something. I was told you can't do that type of residential area, and then later I believe Ricky did get it in his area, which is all right, that's wonderful, but the fact is it changes. And I feel it's very important for the public to be involved in these things. And now it's a little sliver of land, and now we say 1 acre. We don't know what the 1 acre might involve in the future. I don't have the confidence that the public and the input will be there. And I just wanted to make that statement real strongly. And what is the purpose of this? To save time? To save money? Is that what it is? To save the $17,000? And when we waste probably $25,000 on other stuff? Where it isn't involving the public?
If
Maybe I could
might,
just-
let's have our city manager
Yeah.
respond, please.
You know, one of the things that we've been trying to do is try and create ways to expedite projects that come into the city of Las Vegas. And the two examples that Bill shared today are ones that, but for having a resolution like this on the books, we can put those parcels through the paces. It will take somewhere between 60 and 120 days to do that. That's our current course of action. With this resolution, we'll be able to cut that time to less than 30 days.
But the fact is, Betsy, who's in a rush for these remnants of land?
The developer is in the rush.
The developers are in the rush.
Well, because
That
they
owns
can't
that
do
little
their,
slice of land.
they can't do their project at all. And I can't, I'm not a developer, so I can't speak to the time value of money for 120 days versus 30. Maybe for some, it's not that critical. Maybe for others, it makes or breaks their project. I don't know, frankly. But I do think that, you know, one of the things that we discussed at the last meeting was maybe we just put a time limitation on this. I mean, just put a one-year sunset on this resolution, and if you are uncomfortable with our performance after 1 year, it'll be gone, basically. The resolution will expire. And then these 2 or 3 projects, we can test it out, and if it makes you uncomfortable, it's gone. If you want to extend it, then you'd take another action to extend it.
All right, I could understand that, where we would sunset it at that time, but I also would like to ask if I could have a really very specific breakdown of the $17,000 and the timing and what happens there. I understand the timing here, that's pretty well worked out, but I'd like to know exactly where the $17,000 goes, because maybe you could just eliminate one facet of it and not add the other that I have a concern about. But that sounds fine.
And Councilwoman,
I did get an outline, right, of the money spent.
Councilman, I give you a real line item breakdown, but it's fairly simple. We have to publish 2 notices in the Review Journal. We have to actually publish lists of all the parcels that are being included in the redevelopment area, not just these sliver parcels that are added, but go back and publish the whole list. So it becomes a fairly large space in the paper, and that's really the cost of just putting the ad in the paper. It does not include staff time. It's just that direct cost, publishing in the Review Journal.
Thank you very much.
Mayor?
Yes, please, Councilman.
Thank you. Now, you just said something that interested me, because it is a lot of money for the advertising. On the other hand, how large did you say the advertising notice has to be?
Well, it's not just posting an ad for listing one parcel number. We actually have, because we're amending the whole redevelopment plan, and I'd like our council to weigh in if I'm characterizing this incorrectly, but we actually have to publish a list of the whole plan area as far as the description of the whole plan area, not just these individual parcels. So I think it does take a couple pages. I have my staff that helps us with this process. Richard Atkins here, if you want additional detail.
Every time we make a change of any kind in the RDA?
If we're amending the formal redevelopment plan, correct.
What other types of changes are there that do not require such extensive publishing?
If we're considering a transaction, so if we're on a piece of land that we own where we're entering into a new contract, we notify the public. We do that through public posting on our website. We also have our Citizens Advisory Board where we update them on a regular basis what transactions are occurring in the redevelopment area, but that does not require a legal notification. Because this is a plan amendment, there's a very specific process in NRS that we have to follow.
You answered my question, because I wondered if it was NRS requirement. Yeah, because you can take things and you can make them smaller, but you can make them better designed so they attract people's attention better than your common, your typical kind of legal notice. So let me ask Mayor just a couple of questions on this. And I think the idea of a sunset's a good idea, first of all. I'd like to endorse that if we move forward. The timing on the proposed streamlined process in red is new language, and I see you've added the appropriate council member, but it also appears that you have done that after you have made a determination. Am I right? It appears that agency provides planning with the redevelopment agency acknowledgement of receipt and determination of request. That means you've made your decision, and then you're letting us know post facto. So what, I don't see the point in that. It seems to me that the council office should be notified before you make your final determination.
We certainly,
with your recommendation.
Councilman, we certainly can do that. This is really outlining the steps that we have to take administratively to accommodate the request.
Well, it's, again, this is your proposed request here, so.
Correct. Yeah, Councilman, just to kind of point out how these how these cases come before us. We learn of it through planning. So what happens is a developer, a project owner submits a site plan request through city planning. They notify our staff of the issue, that there's this issue with parcels in and parcels outside the area. At that point, once we learn of that from planning, we would notify you and the rest of the council that we have an instance that's seeking administrative remedies. So we would let you know at the front end of the process.
So why isn't planning mentioned here as a, it says the agency provides planning and briefs. See, the way that's worked here, it doesn't say planning briefs. It's the agency, you, RDA briefs. And, you know, there's a different chain of command here. Planning is a different thing altogether. We should be, I think my colleague here has suggested we should be notified coincidentally at this, you know, that way you have, at least you got the time. It doesn't slow the process, I would think.
We certainly could have, if your question is, should city planning notify you, we certainly could have.
Well, it is a lot like the process we follow, whether something goes to the referee or the master on waiving fees for, you know, the fees that accumulate on beat-up properties. We are notified, and then we can say, bring it to us or leave it with you, which allows us then to have a feeling whether there would be any reaction. I think that's important. We can decide based on our own sensitivities here if something's going to raise a hackle out there in our district or not, and in which case we can just let it go. It seems to make sure that that's outlined in your timeline here, it would make me a lot more comfortable, but it involves somebody from planning who is not here. So.
May I just weigh in for a second? So because of the way we're organized, the city manager is the CEO of the RDA, and the city manager is responsible for all of the departments in the city organization, but for the auditor and the city attorney. So what I'm hearing you say is that you want to make sure that both organizations are notified and that you are notified in your capacity both as the redevelopment agency board and as the city council. We will make that happen.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I might just add, and do it at the same time of the original notification, so that we're right there at the beginning, so that we know, so as Mr. Coffin said. Well, you say, of course, Betsy, but of course sometimes doesn't happen unless we have it in there.
Okay. So you will make a motion on this with those stipulations,
Yes.
a 1 year,
Yes.
of the 1 year reviews? Okay.
That's okay. I would move that we accept this item with two stipulations. One, that we have a 1 year sunset where evaluation can be made, and two, where at the original notification of by planning to redevelopment, that at the same time the council member is notified.
Okay, and that's your motion?
Okay. That is my, is that okay?
Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay. Thank you. There is a motion that bleeped up for a split second and disappeared. There it is. Please vote and please post.
I just read.
You have to vote again. It went away. Councilman Anthony, you're hanging out there one more time. And please post. That motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Arndt. Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 6. Agency member recognition. Comments made by individual agency members during this portion of the agenda will not be acted upon by the agency unless the subject is on the agenda. And, excuse me, I forgot 5. Forget that. Scratch. Agenda item 5, citizen participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the redevelopment agency. No subject may be acted upon by the redevelopment agency unless the subject is on the agenda and scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come to the podium, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. This is your opportunity to address the redevelopment agency. That agency agency members are not able to respond or engage in dialogue. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak under this portion of the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 6. Agency member recognition. Comments made by individual agency members during this portion of the agenda will not be acted upon by the agency unless that subject is on the agenda and scheduled for action. Is there any member of the redevelopment agency who wishes to speak under this portion of the agenda? Are there any other comments? Oh, I heard that. That's usually Councilman Anthony who says that. Hearing none, no, he's hungry. He's gotten thin. I've seen that. This redevelopment agency is adjourned, and we will resume. We will start our city council meeting at 9, and we have a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Test, test.